Hey there. Welcome to Mike's Collection, episode 296. I'm Mike, and the part of my collection that I'm going to be talking about today is my brand new H.I.S.S tank from Hasbro. So, the H.I.S.S tank is my all-time favorite G.I. Joe vehicle, and I don't really get that attached to the G.I. Joe vehicles. I had a lot of them when I was a kid, but the H.I.S.S tank was really the only one that I truly loved almost as a character on its own. I had a lot of other cool vehicles, but a lot of them I might not have even bothered to buy if they didn't come with an action figure. I mostly wanted to collect the action figures. But in the case of the H.I.S.S tank, I really wanted the tank as much as I wanted the driver that came with it. So I was born in 1978, which was the perfect age for the relaunch of G.I. Joe in 1982. So, before my existence, G.I. Joe existed as a 12-inch doll with, real cloth clothing. And, those were around from the 1960s. And I think they petered out in 1976. So shortly before I was born. And then G.I. Joe came out in 82 when I was just about 5 years old. I was born in January of 78. So by the time Christmas 1986 was 1983 was rolling around, I was just about 6 years old. I was a month away from that. And that was the perfect age for these toys. I was absolutely obsessed with G.I. Joe figures. And the H.I.S.S tank, I think, may have been my very first G.I. Joe vehicle. And so, it was finally cool to have something for my little men to drive around in. Anyway, I still have my 1983 H.I.S.S tank. And it's still in pretty good shape. It's a little dusty. It could stand to be cleaned, but it's still got all of its original stickers. I think the only thing that's really wrong with it is the little foot pegs on the back have busted off. But anyway, it's very cool. This is my original H.I.S.S driver, I believe. And as you can see, time has not been kind to him. The little elastic washer inside has broken away. And so now he's in two pieces. But I do still have a couple other H.I.S.S drivers laying around that I've acquired over the years. They're not in the best shape either. They're both a little loose. But I can put... Let me see. This is the looser of the two guys. So I can put him in the cockpit of this thing. So the glass canopy just flips up. Dude just sits in there like so. Canopy seals up over him. And then there was room for an extra figure to stand in the back as the gunner. So there you go. That was the vintage H.I.S.S tank. I loved it. They have made a lot of different versions of the H.I.S.S tank over the years in this scale, like for the 3 3/4 inch figures, 4-inch figures. And there's been over 20 variations of the H.I.S.S tank in this scale. But nowadays, G.I. Joe, the figures are 6 inches. So I got one right here. I reach over and grab tripwire from my shelf. You can see how big the modern G.I. Joes are when compared to the old G.I. Joes of my youth. So, of course, it makes it a little more difficult for Hasbro to make vehicles to fit these guys. And I guess to try it out, to see if there was even a market for this stuff, the first vehicle they launched, they did it as a Haslab project, which is very similar to Kickstarter. They say, we're going to make this toy, this H.I.S.S tank, in scale with your 6-inch G.I. Joes, but we need to get a certain amount of people to commit to back it at this price, and if we hit that number, we will produce this thing. So you kind of had to pay for this thing, and once they reached their goal, then you had to wait like a year and a half until the thing actually arrived here. And mine arrived just the other day. It was, as I film this, it's December 27th. And I think my H.I.S.S tank arrived on like the 20th. And I wanted to tear it open right then and there. But I thought, you know what, it's so close to Christmas. I want to relive that feeling of opening up this H.I.S.S tank back in 1983. And just what a thrill it was driving it around on my carpet. And so I sat on my H.I.S.S tank, as painful as it was, until Christmas morning, Christmas afternoon technically. Anyway, now I've got it. I'm just going to pan down a little bit here. So, again, maybe you can sort of... Let me keep this guy in frame. So there is the old H.I.S. tank. And here is the new one. So this guy just arrived. And he is big. He is big and he is cool. And so yeah, we're going to do an in-depth review of it. But the first thing I'm going to do is show you a little bit more of the H.I.S. tanks that I had prior to this, just to give you a little bit of a history lesson on the tank. And then we're going to cut to some footage I shot on Christmas when I opened this thing up. And my buddy Chad, who's my co-host on a lot of these episodes, I called him on the phone, so you'll hear his little audio commentary. He was watching me open this thing up. And then we'll cut back to us taking a live look at it and seeing what it's all about. So, yeah. So first, let's take a look at some of these older figures. So here again is my original 1983 Cobra H.I.S. tank. And I just kind of want to give you a closer look at it so we can kind of compare to the new version once we take a closer look at that one. So this one had such a great silhouette. I loved the design of this thing. I don't think it was based on anything in the real world. So it's got a little bit of a kind of science fiction edge to it, which I really liked. A lot of the other early vehicles in G.I. Joe looked like real world vehicles. Like there was a green tank and a green Jeep and a green helicopter. It all looked like stuff, that you saw in modern military movies. But this thing here was very unique, and I think that really appealed to me. So very, very cool. The H.I.S., by the way, stands for High Speed Sentry. There is no I in there, so I don't know. It is spelled H.I.S.S. as an acronym, but yeah, it's just High Speed Sentry. So yeah, you'll see here it's got the 788 sticker on there. That came on all of the H.I.S. tanks. It's got this kind of triangular tread, but the tread doesn't work. Like, it doesn't move. It's just a solid piece of plastic. There was wheels on the bottom of this thing that spun like so. So you could drive it along your carpet, but, not like a real tank. Now, the G.I. Joe tank actually did have working treads. So that was, kind of glaringly obvious that this H.I.S. tank didn't have as cool of a functionality as far as the treads go. And then, the cockpit, it just had this glass canopy that I think used to stay in place really well, but now it doesn't seem to click in place so good. But inside, you see, there was no stickers or anything on the inside of the cockpit. It's got some little sculpted details in there, but it's pretty plain. And this poor guy seems pretty vulnerable. I don't know why you would put a glass canopy on the front of a tank, but that's what he had to deal with. And then there was this spinning turret here on the back, which could fit one figure, maybe two, if you wanted to smush them in there. This guy's also pretty vulnerable, with his head just sticking up there. That seems like a pretty dangerous position. But yeah, these guns moved up and down. They moved in unison, so it's one piece of plastic that's connected in the middle here. Now, this wasn't really intended as storage, but if you spin this thing around, you could take this out, and you could kind of hide other figures in there. So, for example, if I wanted to... I'm a little leery to do this because I don't want to break this guy, but if you put him in here, you could put this on top of him. It didn't really maybe lock in place quite as well. It would maybe sit like this, but that was something that I used when I used to play with my toys. It was kind of like a Trojan horse. The H.I.S. tank would roll in, and G.I. Joe wouldn't suspect that there was a couple extra Cobra Troopers hidden inside of there. And then lastly, you have the little pegs on the back, so you could have two other troopers whose little footholes would stand on the peg, and they would stand there like that. Again, also very vulnerable. Not much protection on there. So, but yeah, those pegs have since broken off. But anyway, that is the original tank. They did do a H.I.S. tank version 2 in 1989, which I did not have because I was getting out of G.I. Joe kind of right around that time. 1990 was the last year that I bought any vintage G.I. Joes for my childhood collection. So I did not get the 89 H.I.S. tank version 2, plus I thought it was ugly. It had a similar shape, but it was a different color. It had a different canopy. It had a lot of extra snap-on pieces. Yeah, I thought it kind of sucked. Now, in 2000, they actually released another H.I.S. tank, and that was the H.I.S. tank version 3. Now, it looked like this one again, except it was blue, and it looked pretty cool as well. But I did not get the H.I.S.S tank version 3. But what I liked about the H.I.S S tank version 3 is that it came with another version of the H.I.S S driver. And this guy doesn't really have a name. He was always just known as H.I.S S driver or H.I.S S pilot. But now we got this guy here. So they repainted him, and they named him Rip It. So this guy came with the 2000 tank. And I really like this look as well. I don't know if I'd say I like it better than the classic version, but I like it, possibly equally. It's very cool because I really loved this design. Maybe not everybody did, because he did have these kind of like really high hooker boots on, and his head is arguably maybe a little too big for his body. He had a silver Cobra emblem on his chest, but that rubs off really easily. I think it was that silver paint. So all 3 of my H.I.S S troopers that I have, the silver emblem is completely rubbed off of their chest. So that was kind of a bummer. But yeah, you can see that Rip It's Cobra symbol is still looking good all these 23 years later. So by the time 2000 came around, I didn't play with my G.I. Joes anymore because I was a young adult, but I did collect them. And so yeah, I was back into collecting by 2000. And I was building little armies, and I had a diorama set up in my apartment. So I had tanks, and in my mind, the H.I.S S driver, he led a squad of these guys, which I called Rip It Vipers, because I bought a whole bunch of these guys on eBay. So I have a whole bunch of Rip It's without having to buy the tank that he came with. And yeah, I had these guys kind of as a squad that supported the H.I.S tank. So anyway, that's it for my vintage H.I.S tanks. But then in 2007, when Hasbro moved on to the G.I. Joe 25th anniversary line, and that's when they kind of upgraded the figures from 3 3/4 inches to 4 inches and gave them a little bit more detail, that's when my H.I.S tank collection really started to grow. So here is my vintage H.I.S tank next to my 2008, I'll call it modern or contemporary H.I.S tank, although obviously that's a little dated at this point now as well. But this is the one that was made for the 4-inch figures. So the vehicle is basically the exact same. Now it does have some different stickers, but the design is it's like the same mold. Everything's the same size, except they did have to do some retooling to the cockpit to allow for the taller figure to fit inside of there. So again, here is the vintage H.I.S driver, and here is the modern 4-inch H.I.S driver. Now again, this is one of the figures that I thought translated really well into the modern 4-inch format. I think this guy looks great, and it solves the problem of maybe his head looking a little too big. Yeah, I really think this guy looks incredible. Now oddly enough, this guy did not come packaged with this H.I.S tank. He actually came carded as a figure all by himself. So when you bought the H.I.S tank, it actually came with a variation of the standard Cobra Trooper. So a little bit later in the 4-inch line, we did get a new version of the blue Cobra H.I.S tank that originally came with Rip It. And we also got an upgraded version of Rip It. And years later, an even little brighter upgraded version of Rip It. We later got red and orange versions of the H.I.S tank. Again, the tooling stayed mostly the same, except you'll notice for this version they have upgraded the guns on here. So these are a little bit more intense than the standard gun turret on the tank. But yeah, both these versions are pretty cool. And we also got white or Arctic versions and this green version of the H.I.S tank. Now you'll notice with the Arctic one, it had a couple of new pieces, and that it had like some extra attachments here that went on the sides, and they also added a missile launcher in place of the double gun turret. And then with this one had an interesting backstory in that this was supposedly a H.I.S tank that was captured by G.I. Joe, and then they refurbished it for their purposes, which is why it's in that army green, and it's got the G.I. Joe stickers and stuff. It has the updated kind of railgun there from the orange H.I.S tank, but otherwise the design stayed, pretty true to the 1983 classic. When the G.I. Joe live action movies came out, we got another Pretty radical redesign of the Cobra Hiss tank. I don't like it as much as the classic, but it's still pretty cool. And this time, now it's dusty as all hell. I should have cleaned it off. But anyway, you'll see this one has a working rubber tread. So that was cool as you drove it around. It's not going to agree with me. But yeah, the tread moved as you wheeled the thing around. You'll also notice it's trying to pop up like this. This is another feature that it had, so that when you pressed a button, the body of the Hiss tank popped up to give it that extra height. So that's kind of cool. These Hiss tanks only had room for a single pilot in the cockpit, and there was no longer an area for a gunner in the back, and there was no storage for for hiding away any additional Cobra troopers or any accessories. Here is the movie design in red. This here was a further kind of upgrade to the Hiss tank. So they did change it up a bit more. You'll notice it no longer has the rubber treads, so they simplified that. They changed up and added this big cannon on the back, which does have a seat for a gunner, and they went back to the glass canopy. So it's a little more protected than the vintage tank. But yeah, otherwise, it retains elements of the Hiss tank, but we have gotten pretty far away from that original design at this point. And the last one I'm going to show you here, this is a retool of the blue one that I just showed you, except this was a mashup with Transformers. So you can see they modded the gun turret to look like Shockwave's gun, who is the purple Transformer with the cycloptic eye. So that's why they have the cycloptic eye here in the front, and they've got the Decepticon logos. Really nice metallic purple. So yeah, this was a pretty cool Hiss tank as well. Anyway, now I'm going to cut to the footage I shot of me unboxing the brand new Haslab H.I.S.S tank under my Christmas tree on Christmas morning. Alright, so I'm here under my Christmas tree, getting ready to open this H.I.S.S tank box that showed up almost a week ago. And I also am going to unbox later my H.I.S.S Fire Team, which shipped out at the same time as the H.I.S.S tank. So it's 3 troopers to be included with the tank. So pretty cool. All right, here we go. Oh, and I'll mention that Chad is with us in spirit. He's I've got him on my phone just to my left. How you doing, Chad?
Hey, everyone.
Chad might be here in person if he didn't have COVID, so yeah. Feel better soon, Chad.
Thank you.
My wife Vanessa's here too. She wants to say hi.
Hi.
Yeah, Vanessa got me lots of cool stuff for Christmas, which I'm sure I will showcase either in this episode or another episode. Okay, so outer box is open. And another box inside. And they've got the nice plastic corner protectors there to help keep the box nice and safe. Not sure the best way to tackle this is.
That's a huge box.
Yep, so there we go. This big box. So this is exciting. Takes me back to my days under the Christmas tree in 1983 when I opened my first H.I.S.S tank. Much smaller than this one. Alright, here we go. See the H.I.S.S logo there.
Nice.
Yeah. Pretty cool. Alright, I have to shake this guy out now. She's in there tight. Chad's
Vanessa
usually the one
beat me
that
to
makes
it.
those jokes. Thank you to my lovely assistant. All right, so here we go. There she is.
Wow.
His tank in all its glory. So, the artwork on the side here, so we've got the Hiss Trooper with kind of the front end of the tank here. And it looks like you got Baroness kind of hovering in the background here a little bit. That wraps around. You see Destro and Cobra Commander also kind of just in the background. Another one of the Hiss Troopers marching forward. Another cool shot of the Hiss tank with that like projected light beam out here, like a bat symbol, which we'll see later. And then you've got another member of the Hiss crew with another shot of the tank here. It's a very cool artwork. On the top, we've got the logo there. And on the bottom, you've got the kind of like spec. It looks like the old instruction manual blueprints of the tank. So yeah, that looks pretty sweet too. All right. Okay, you got it open there. So we got the smaller box, which I believe has the action figures, and the bigger box with the tank. All right, so we got this little box here. Not much to see there, but pop that open. Oh, the cat's come over to check it out. So you got a sticker sheet. So I believe you can customize the Hiss with different call signs or whatever you want to put on there. So it's pretty cool. All right, now these guys I'm super excited about. I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that were more excited for the tank, which I am excited for, but I'm an action figure guy, so it's the pilots that actually have me pretty excited. So here is the Hiss Gunner. So again, some nice artwork. It's still the windowless packaging, but these figures, I believe, are numbered for those of you collectors that care about that stuff. So these guys are part of the mainline numbering. So yeah, nice picture on the front and kind of like a blueprint on the back. So I'm not going to do it. We'll pop these guys open later, but for now, just there it is in the box. And that is the female trooper. It might be a little hard to tell, but yeah. So that's the female version of the Hiss driver. Now here's the main pilot, the Cobra Hiss driver. So again, some cool artwork in that sealed box on the front. He's numbered 99. A little blueprint of the character on the back. So Chad, did you have a Hiss tank when you were a kid?
No, the only one I had was the shuttle.
Okay. That's a good one to have.
Yeah.
I never had the shuttle. But anyway, and then here's the Cobra Hiss Tactician. So when Hasbro was first funding this project, we only were going to get this figure if they hit the early funding goal. So I think they needed to have the full like 4,000 backers or whatever within the first, I don't know what it was, the first week they wanted it or something, but I think we funded it in the first day, something to that effect. So we got this figure, and there was a fan vote to see what color this figure would be. And this was a character that was designed by Ron Rudat. So that's why you've got Ron Rudat's signature on the box.
Is that an authentic signature, or is it just printed on there?
It looks like it, but I'm sure it's just printed on there. Because I think I don't know how many thousand Hiss tanks they ended up with. Yeah. But yeah, I don't think he would have signed all these guys. But anyways, that's pretty cool. There was a couple other color schemes. I was kind of hoping for the blue or like the purple. But anyway, now this one here. So I'm definitely going to open all those guys later. I'm on the fence about this last one. So this is a classic Cobra Commander in the retro card. So this guy looks super awesome.
Yeah.
But I would pretty much guarantee we're going to get this same figure released at retail. Because it's too nice a figure for them to keep exclusive to this set. So if they release a regular version that's maybe just slightly different shade of blue or something, I'll be kicking myself for opening this up. Because I think this is going to become a pretty rare collectible in the grand scheme of things. So I don't know. I'll have to decide what I'm going to do with this guy, but I'm not going to peel him open right away anyway until I figure that out.
That's a nice stiff card, too.
Yeah, they mentioned that on one of their live streams that they changed up the cardboard. So this is a nice thick plastic or thick cardboard. Yeah, the ones that we've been buying before were basically
flimsy
paper.
Walmart-looking ones.
Yeah, it sucked. All right. So here we go. The bigger box. My wife is on the edge of her seat over here. So excited. Okay, so just got the H.I.S.S logo on the top. Not much to see when you initially open it up. Just a little gun piece there. I think a lot of these are the add-ons that, as it funded and it surpassed the original funding goal, these were like the stretch goals that we got. So, some more little add-on pieces. A couple optional, like, cockpits or whatever you want to call it. So this one here has got some extra design on it, where this one here is just a solid clear plastic like the original 83. And there she is. So yeah, I thought I might have to do a little bit more assembly, but it looks like it's pretty much together. I'm going to have to snap on the weapons and such.
Jesus.
Yeah, so let me just get the rest of this stuff out of here. So a little more, a couple more little pieces to put in the back. There's the missiles. The big gun turret for the back of the tank. And some more missiles. Alright, I think that's it. Here it is. It's very well protected. All right.
That's crazy.
Ooh, the back panel flipped open and almost dropped it. Ooh. But anyway, there you go. The back panel opens up. And so that way you can see there's a seat in there for a guy and there's a gun rack. What else we got here? I don't imagine... So it's like real rubber tread, so I don't know if you can see that. But yeah, they get some squishiness to them. And they really turn. They make that very satisfying sound as you...
It's 10K ASMR.
Yeah, exactly. Get little ladders that flip down here so the guys can climb up into the cockpit, which is a small detail, but makes sense and adds some realism. Inside the cockpit there, got a seat belt, safety first, and some screens with some stickers and stuff on them. Although I'm sure those probably get enhanced with some of the stickers that came on the sticker sheet. I don't know if the light effect works yet. So there's a button on the bottom here. Click that. No. So I'm going to have to add some batteries, I guess, before it lights up.
Do you think they would include batteries?
And they might be. They might be in one of these little packages. I don't know. But anyway, it's pretty cool.
How long is it and how wide?
I don't know. I would say it's
16 to 18 inches long.
Yeah, Vanessa says 16 to 18 inches long. I don't know if it's quite that much, but yeah, I don't know. Maybe 16. I would say kind of in the 14 to 16 range. And yeah, I don't know. Across, it's maybe like 6 inches, like from the tread there. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's not enormous. Like I was a little worried that I didn't know where I'd store this thing, but I think this will fit on a bookshelf without being too
for sure
unwieldy. You know, like it's not like Jabba's sail barge or something.
Yeah.
You know, where you need a whole extra coffee table in the middle of the room. So yeah,
Might
so that's
just have
good.
to go on the top on its own.
Yeah, although then I've got the helicopter coming, so.
Oh right, yeah.
Don't know what I'm gonna do with that. But yeah, it's pretty cool. So that's just the unboxing that I wanted to share with you guys, with Chad, with Vanessa. But yeah, once I get all these pieces snapped on and the figures open up, we'll take a more in-depth look at the thing. But yeah, pretty cool. I'm pretty happy.
Nice. That's epic.
Yeah. All right.
Now, do you think the Cobra Commander figure will make your top of the list? Or is that newness bias?
It would be kind of newness bias. Like I am planning on making my best of the year list in the next couple of days. If I don't open this guy up before then, I don't think I can justify putting a sealed figure on my list, really.
Yeah.
I kind of need to feel it in my hands. And it is a nice looking figure, but it is such a classic Cobra Commander. I feel like I have this figure, a dozen times over in my collection already at various scales. Plus, I do have at least 3 Cobra Commanders open in the classified collection. It's not like a character that I was needing so much. The Hiss driver is much more likely to make my list because this is a character that we didn't have before today, and he was one of my childhood favorites. So yeah, very cool stuff. So maybe, Chad, we can keep talking if you want, but I'm going to maybe sign off with the rest of these folks, and we'll pick this up again later. So here is the Hiss tank, fully loaded, outside of the box. It's all souped up. And yeah, this thing is incredible. I'm really pleased with it. And I will say one thing I'm really pleased about is the size of it. It's big and it's impressive, but it's actually not as big as I was expected, which I was a little worried about. I didn't know where I'd be able to store this thing, but I think it's sized well enough that it will fit on like kind of a standard bookshelf. It's not going to be so big and awkward like some of those other larger toys that are available to purchase. Just for example, I bought the Snake Mountain playset from Super 7, and the thing is gigantic. It doesn't really fit anywhere. Recently, Super 7 was trying to crowdfund a Cobra airship, which was this big circular spaceship thing that, again, I don't know where I would put it. So yeah, I was a little worried with this Hiss tank too, that it would be hard to display. But I think it's a reasonable size that I should be able to find a home for it. So that's good. So anyway, before we get into the tank, I'll just quickly show you. We did get some instructions with it here. So it walks you through how everything works. I didn't really need this because it was all pretty self-explanatory. It also came with a sticker sheet, which I have not touched, and I don't know if I will, because you'll see here like the classic 788 numbering of the Hiss tank. That's already on here. So yeah, if you want to change that up, because that's got kind of a grid pattern to it almost. So if you want to make it solid, you could put the sticker over top of it. If you wanted to change up the number, these are all single numbers. So if you wanted to have this, 1, 2, 3, 4, or you wanted to have it 69, you could do that. And then it's got all these other little Cobra logos and stuff. One thing that's kind of cool to note is these Cobra symbols, which you notice look a little wonky, because that's what the Cobra symbol is supposed to look like with the big snake head on there. These ones here look like they have Mickey Mouse ears. So there's a reason for that, and we'll talk about that a little bit later when we're looking at the figures. But anyway, that's pretty cool that you get all these stickers so you can customize this thing if you want to. Now, yeah, this thing was very hard to fit on my desk. So I'm filming this with my phone rather than my tablet. So hopefully this all works out properly. You guys can see everything on screen here. But yeah, so it's got the working tread. So I don't have a whole lot of room to show it to you. But if I move this tank back and forth, you'll see that rubber tread moves. All the wheels inside turn. Yeah, it works well. I just don't have the room to really show it to you here. It's got these little ladders that flip down. Although I haven't really done that yet. There's a little bit of a resistance there. So I don't want to force that. But those should flip down so that they can climb up. But yeah, I'm not gonna pull on it too hard right now. These missile attachments. So these were optional. These were one of the things that were one of the add-ons with the Haslab. So if we had hit the original funding goal that Hasbro needed to meet, we would have got the bare bones tank with a single driver. But as more people funded it and the numbers kind of surpassed what their expectations were, they gave us these add-on bonuses for no extra cost. So these missiles were one of those bonuses. So they just snap on relatively easily. Of course, now I can't get them off, but let's see. Ah, there we go. I was trying to remove it from the wrong spot. I was pulling it from here, and by doing so, I think I just learned something new. So these, I did have it in like that. So apparently you can extend these out, which gives you a little bit more coverage for your missiles. So that's something I didn't even realize until just now. All these missiles, they're individually plugged in there, so you can launch each of these missiles, and they all attach in there pretty firmly, which is good, because it has been an issue with G.I. Joe missiles in the past, that they plug on here ever so gingerly, and then you shake them or you look at the thing wrong and the missiles all fall off. So I'm happy to report that those are on there nice and sturdy. And yeah, so then this just plugs in with this circular thing here. But you'll notice that plug, if you're not using it, if you don't want to display it with the missiles, you can just close this little lid, and now it doesn't look out of place. It just looks like that's the where you fill the gas tank or something. I don't know. But yeah, that little lid pops up, and then you can plug the missiles in like so, nice and easy. And there is some adjustment, so if you want to point them up, if he's shooting at a helicopter or something, you're going to have them pointing upwards. All very cool. What else? The back here, so you've got these extra mounted guns. So these can be swiveled around like so. They can be swiveled all the way around like so if you really want to. And these little, like, I don't know, what do you call those? The magazine or whatever. Those were detached, so you attach those on there like that. If for some reason you don't want to attach these kind of canisters, you don't have to. And then, of course, there's the big old gun on the top. Now, in the vintage tank, the guns were connected, so if you moved one up, the other one went up. But here, you don't have to do that. One can go up and one can go down, so they can point in different directions. Another kind of cool thing that they added was this shield with the Cobra logo. So this was an add-on piece. I don't know if I can get it off easily. Yep, so it pops right off like that. And now this looks more like the standard H.I.S.S tank of old, where it's just got this little thing here with the Cobra logo. But if you have a gunner, which I'll put my gunner up here, if he's standing up there, he's still a lot more likely to get shot because he's not very well protected. So that's why they've added this here. So you plug that on, and now you can kind of duck down behind that, and that makes a lot of sense. And yeah, so this thing here still swivels around 360, a lot of motion there. Let's see if this ladder moves a little bit better. Okay, that one does. So that ladder there, you'll see, so that just flips down like that, nice and easy. That's how the other one should work, but it's a little stiff. On the tread, so there was the option. You could either display it with this kind of new fancy one with the little red grill and this kind of cross-hatched pattern, or you could go with the more simple design. Now, the more simple design is closer to what we saw on the vintage H.I.S.S tank. So this just plugs in. There's 3 plugs on the side there. You can move that out of there and replace it with that. And so now let me just grab my vintage H.I.S. tank for a second. So here is the vintage H.I.S. So you can see the shape of this little armor plating that was not removable. That was just part of the sculpt in the vintage tank. But yeah, if you want this to look like your vintage tank, you just put on this piece here and you get rid of the kind of fancier one. I like the updated version, so this is how I'm going to display mine. But there are some crazy folks out there who bought more than one of these things, and it's nice that you have the option to customize it. So some can have missiles, some might not. Some can have the classic kind of armor there, and some can have the updated armor. So anyway, that's pretty cool. So let's spin things around here and show you the canopy a little bit. So this thing here, you can see it's got a little latch. Mine's not fully closed, but it does snap into place, so it closes up nice and tight. Just need to get your nail in there a little bit and get this whole thing to pop up. And it opens just like the old vintage H.I.S. tank. But one thing that's cool about this is a kind of modern update. So you can open the whole thing, or you can just open the sides up, so it's kind of like a suicide door. And both sides open up like that. So that's pretty sweet. That's a pretty neat update. But just like with the armor on the treads, there was an option to have this solid glass canopy, which I have not opened. I still have it in the protective plastic. But you can put that on there, and that would make it look like the classic H.I.S. tank, except you wouldn't have the suicide door function, and you would also lose some of this armor bit, which I think is meant to maybe protect the driver a little bit better than this solid glass. I don't know that it really would, but anyway. So if we pop this open, you'll see the driver there is in his seatbelt. I had a little bit of difficulty getting that figured out, but it snaps across here at the where you see this Cobra symbol. It separates there, and you just lift that up over his shoulders, and then he slides out like so. So that's pretty cool. And I'll try and spin this around so I can show you inside of the cockpit a little bit. So I'm not sure what the best way to approach this is, but I'm trying to give you a nice close look at what goes on inside of the cockpit. So you can see lots of nice details of that little red button there on his armrest. He's got all these little panels. He's got this clear piece of targeting, little plastic there. There's lots of little things going on his screens. So yeah, it's pretty cool. And here's a closer look at the front of the tank. You can see it's got these like translucent plastic for like headlights, and then it's got this gun turret at the bottom which spins around. So that was removable. You could choose not to have this if you don't want to, because the classic H.I.S. tank did not have this extra gun turret there. So yeah, if you're really trying to go for the classic look, you don't need to do that. There's not much to see on the bottom of the tank. There's not much detailing down here. But one thing of note is right here. That is a button which operates the electronics. And down here, you'll see there's a little pad, little lid that you have to unscrew to put in 3 AA batteries. And now I will show you what those AA batteries do. So if you click the button on the bottom once, we should get, I might need to turn these lights off, turn these lights down a little bit. Let's see. So we hit the button. There you go. You'll see the screens have lit up. Now this next one's pretty cool. So hit that, and then you get a Cobra logo that is projected from the front of the tank. And you see the front of the tank is lit up. If I hit the button again, now those headlights come up, and then hit it again, and those bottom headlights come on. So lots of cool light up features in here. And as you hit the button again, they kind of slowly turn off one by one. It reverses the effect. So one more press, and let's see. There. Now I think everything is turned off. But yeah, that is pretty cool. Now I think the last thing that I need to show you on the tank is the back. So again, the tank in the past never had any storage, but now we've got this that opens up, and when you open it up, a red light comes on in there. I don't know if you're really seeing that. Maybe if I turn this off. Anyway, there is a red light that comes on automatically. So even if you don't have any of the other light functions on, as soon as you open this back latch, the red light does come on. In here, you'll see there is a weapons rack, so you can hang all the guns that came with all the different figures. This here, one of them came with a shovel, so you can just store the shovel there. And then there is an adjustable seat that slides up and down here, and can also be folded up, I think, maybe. I don't want to mess with it too much, but I think the seat slides up and down depending on how tall of a figure you have sitting in there. And then you can see the feet of the gunner. They kind of come down here into this little platform. And yeah, and then the back seals up like so. And just like in the old vehicle, there's this little ledge where another guy can stand, and this folds down to complete the ledge. And it's got a little towy thing there, because we are going to get a little missile launcher later that the H.I.S. tank will be able to tow, but you can tuck that away as well, so you don't have to have that out if it's not towing anything. And yeah, I don't know if there's much more to say about the tank. It's just super cool. It looks great. It's nice to have that ability to make it look like a classic H.I.S. tank, or to add the new elements like the gun, the new armor, the new cockpit, the missiles, the side guns. All that stuff is add-ons. The little armor up front here to protect the gunner. So yeah, you can add all that, and yeah, you could really have a very diverse fleet of H.I.S. tanks on your shelf if you wanted to. So now let's talk about the included figures, which I am very excited about, because as I told you earlier, I love the Cobra H.I.S. driver. So in the center there, we have the classic Cobra H.I.S. driver in his red and blue. And then we have the Cobra H.I.S. gunner. So this is the female one. We have never had a female H.I.S. driver or H.I.S. gunner or anything like that in the past. We did get some female versions of like standard Cobra blue shirt infantry troopers, but the female troopers have not really gone beyond that. Like for any of the other Viper types, we haven't had female Heat Vipers or Night Vipers or Hydro Vipers or Alley Vipers, anything like that. So this is really neat that we're getting female troopers beyond the standard blue shirt. And then lastly, we have the Cobra H.I.S. Tactician. So this is again a new character. We have never had a H.I.S. driver in these colors before. This was voted on by the fans. I'm perfectly fine with it. I think some of the other color schemes were better, but yeah, I don't know. Maybe we'll get those eventually, because this H.I.S. tank was expensive. A lot of people were not able to afford it, I'm sure, and I barely could afford it myself, to be honest with you, but I would have been pretty heartbroken if I couldn't afford the tank and knowing that I would not be able to get the H.I.S. driver. Now it is possible, because the Hasbro folks did say that the H.I.S. tank was kind of one and done. It is not going to show up at retail. I'm pretty sure they even confirmed that they aren't going to release it in a different color, although of course they could change their mind. But I don't know if they said specifically about the H.I.S. driver, if they're not going to re-release him or not. So maybe they'll release this exact same figure on a single card so everybody can get him. I don't know. But yeah, it would be a real bummer if we're not able to get these guys out at mass retail. Now, I find it very unlikely that the female trooper would, and I don't think this guy in these colors would ever go out to mass retail. But this guy I definitely feel should. Or, at the very least, I think they'll repaint him to give us one of the other versions of the H.I.S. driver. Now, I showed you some of these 4-inch figures earlier, but I did not show you all of the different variations of the H.I.S. driver that we've gotten over the years. So as you can see, there are different versions. We've got the classic red and blue, but then we've also got red and silver over here. We've got this guy that's a little more heavily armored, even though he's still kind of in the classic red and blue. Then we've also got the orange one that's armored up. We've got the white one with the fur trim for the Arctic H.I.S. tank. And then we've got this other guy here that's just in blue and black. And then we've got the Rip It paint scheme as well. So even if Hasbro feels that they have to stick to their word and not release these figures in this color scheme at retail, hopefully they can maybe cut corners and say, well, we'll give you this color scheme at retail, or maybe we'll give you the Rip It color scheme at retail. So I think there's a pretty good chance that you will be able to get this figure at some point in the future at regular retail, even if the colors don't match, these ones here exactly. Now for accessories, each one of these H.I.S.S troopers came with a pistol, which can be holstered on their leg. So I have all of them with their pistols holstered. They all came with one of these crazy sci-fi looking rifles with the blade on the end. They're very difficult to get into their hands, so you can see how that works. They have to get their hand around this part with their finger in through there, and then you've got this piece here that kind of is in the way of their forearm. So yeah, I really had to wrestle to get this into their hands. I kind of gave up after a while on this guy, but you can see I was able to do it with him. So yeah, he does have his finger there, but you can see his fingers aren't really wrapped around where they're supposed to. Because yeah, it was really hard to get that on there. So not the best fit for the guns, but the guns do look cool. Now there was also this additional gun, which worked out much better. That fit in her hand a lot more realistically with this additional ammo clip. So that's how I'm going to display her. But for these guns, if I choose not to put them in their hands, I can put these on the weapons rack that was in the back of the H.I.S.S tank. They also came with this shovel, which can be hung in the back of the H.I.S.S tank, and this pickaxe. So your H.I.S.S tank is fully stocked. And lastly, each one of these guys came with a set of fists, and they're kind of in MMA gloves, which is kind of interesting. I'm not going to waste a bunch of time going over articulation and stuff. It's all pretty standard for G.I. Joe classified figures. Even the female here, she's got double jointed arms, double jointed legs. They've got all the standard movement. They work really well. I love all these figures. And even though the female trooper and the Tactician are both something new that I've never had in my collection before, I am a nostalgic guy, and you just can't beat the classic H.I.S.S driver. So this one here is my favorite of the bunch. So lastly, let's quickly talk about the Cobra Commander. So I mentioned earlier when I was unboxing this thing, I didn't know if I was going to open this figure, and I still don't know if I'm going to. I'm not going to do it right now anyway, so you won't really get to see this figure outside of the packaging in this video. But Cobra Commander, this is his classic look. We've got a couple of versions of Cobra Commander in the classified line already. So we've got this one in blue, this one in a brighter blue, and we also have them in black. So, it's not like I have a shortage of Cobra Commanders in my collection. But this one is a little bit more regal. He's got these, not knee-high boots, the sword, all these extra straps, and the, fancy buttons and chains. He looks a little more ceremonial. And this is not what Cobra Commander looked like, in the cartoon. This is. It's based on the original 1982-83 Cobra Commander figure. And I don't have that guy readily available, but this is a classic Cobra Commander from the 4-inch line. And you can see this is what they were going for. This is what fans want. It's just a classic Cobra Commander in his battle helmet. Doesn't have all the extra embellishments. Just pretty straightforward. So this one here was what they called the Ultimate Cobra Commander for the 4-inch line. They tried to make the perfect 4-inch Cobra Commander, and that's what they've translated here. And I think it's even more successful. I think he looks fantastic at this scale. I think this guy here, there was a little too much chrome showing on his helmet, his face seemed too long. I think they fixed that with this guy here. I think the ratio of, now mind you, it's truly not reflective chrome the way the other one is, so that's a bit of a downgrade, I think. But I think as far as the scale and the shape of it and everything, I think he looks awesome. For accessories, you can see he comes with some cool stuff there. He's got some extra hands. He's got a knife. He's got a gun. He's got a backpack which will store his gun. And then he's also got a little globe with a cobra wrapped around it, which is something that he used to hold in advertisements and stuff. You've got some nice vintage artwork there. The back of the packaging, it's got a kind of classic file card there. Now, one of the things that's neat about this figure, and one of the reasons why I don't think I'm going to open him, is in the vintage line, A lot of the original Cobra Commanders, you can see he's got that Cobra Commander logo, or that Cobra logo on his chest. A lot of them were mispainted, and it looked like, rather than having a Cobra, it looked like he had Mickey Mouse ears. And that became known as Mickey Mouse Cobra Commander. So it was a paint error, and it was done in limited numbers. But it became highly sought after as a collectible. So if you have a vintage 1983 Cobra Commander with the Mickey Mouse looking ears on the Cobra logo, make sure you take care of that thing, because that's worth a lot of money, and a lot of collectors would probably gladly take that off your hands. So it's kind of a little homage, or call it an inside joke or whatever. When the HasLab folks said they were going to include a Cobra Commander, this was the last stretch goal that was added to the tank. They were going to give us a classic Cobra Commander that everybody wants, but you'll notice he's got the Mickey Mouse style logo on his chest instead of the proper Cobra logo, which again, that goes back to the sticker sheet I showed you earlier where it had those Mickey Mouse looking Cobra symbols. So that's to tie it into this Cobra Commander, which is an homage to a paint error in the 80s. So this thing is kind of very specific, and since you could only get this Mickey Mouse classified Cobra Commander in the HasLab, I think there's only as many of these things exist as there are HISS tanks. And a lot of people that get HISS tanks will open them up. So there's not going to be a whole lot of these sealed Cobra Commanders floating around. And I think it has the possibility to become a very expensive collectible on the secondary market, in the same way that the original one is. So I'm not somebody that usually collects for value or for resale or anything like that. But I think because this has such a specific Mickey Mouse symbol, I wouldn't be surprised if they release this Cobra Commander figure, because it's in high demand. Everybody wants this in their collection. And they'll just release a standard version with the proper Cobra symbol. So if they do that, then yeah, I could have this exact figure in my collection with the proper logo. Unless you're paying close attention, you probably won't even notice the difference. And that way I can keep this one with the Mickey Mouse logo sealed in my collection, so just in case I ever need to, need some quick cash or something, I will have this thing here still sealed and packaged, and it'd be a lot more valuable in the original packaging. But, so since I'm not opening him up, I can't really do a proper review. But yeah, he looks great. All the detail, all the coloring. Very cool. I am envious of those that have opened him up. I'm really hoping that it isn't long before they announce a regular retail release, so I can not have to think about opening him up anymore. Okay, so that was my review of the HasLab H.I.S.S tank. And it's awesome. Very cool, very big. Not quite sure where I'm going to put it, but I'm excited to finally have it in hand, and I hope you enjoyed the video. I know there have been lots of review videos posted of this long before I got it. So if you took the time to still sit through my video, even though you've probably seen other videos, I appreciate it. So thank you. And yeah, so if you enjoyed it, please make sure to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, come back for future videos, as me and Chad are always reviewing all kinds of different stuff. So I'll see you then, and Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. Ciao.